Obviously, there is pain. There is pain going right now if you are a member of the government, if you are working for the government, maybe you've been furloughed, maybe your paychecks are being held, and the Republicans, of course, there was another opportunity to move forward. The Democrats once again shut it down. This is how many attempts? The 13th, 12th attempt?
Yeah, that the Democrats decided not to reopen the government with a clean continuing resolution.
And not even really discuss it, not even have any sort of conversation. So that's what's happening. Of course, the Democrats will say it's the Republicans. Republicans will say it's the Democrats. And the Republicans put a point together and said, hey, how about we start paying people, though?
So Senator Ron Johnson is expected to have a vote today on a bill which would pay federal employees that are still having to work, because there are those that are furloughed that are at 70%. Home, that aren't going to work. But then there are those, you think about the air traffic control, the military, people that still have to show up and are not going to be receiving a paycheck this Friday when payday rolls around. And so he put together a bill that those that are still having to show up should be getting paid for that. The Democrats are trying to frame that as, well, then the president gets to pick who's essential and who's not. He gets to pick who's getting paid and who's not, which is a ridiculous argument in and of itself. But now the Democrats came up with two kind of competing alternatives to Senator Johnson's bill.
They can't just say yes, that's a good idea.
Right, they can't do that, and then they can't also look like they didn't come up with something on their own.
Right.
So one is the most bizarre thing that I think I've seen proposed by a Democrat, and they proposed a lot because someone
that's saying a lot. Well,
someone thought this is a really good idea, and it's going to make us look better throughout this shutdown process. This comes out of Senator Gary Peters from Michigan. He's already planning to announce today, or to drop at the Senate today, that would pay all federal employees from the start of the shutdown up until when that bill is enacted. So essentially, hitting the reset button on the government shutdown.
Reopen, close.
We're going to pay everybody, and then you get your back pay, your one or two missed paychecks throughout this process, Jordan. But then immediately you're back at zero. You're still nervous for your family. You're still worried about it.
It opens a wild precedent.
A horrendous precedent to open, because what it does is allows the government to operate at 100% when Congress has not passed a budget, because now you're paying for everyone, and because you have to do it every couple weeks, you're having to go back and vote. And if they're trying to pressure Republicans into doing this, say, oh, these people need their paychecks, instead of Republicans saying they'd all be getting their back pay right now if you signed on with the majority party who controls the House, the Senate, and the White House continuing resolution, which, by the way, adds nothing new to what was already passed as law a year ago. So no new Republican plans. Just keep things as they are. Yeah. You don't have to start a precedent of funding the government, but it's technically shut down.
Yeah, the thing is, like, you do that forever. You could literally keep the government closed and shut down forever, but fully paid. But then, of course, some of your services aren't getting to all the. It could be a disaster that they're not thinking of long term, or maybe they are, and maybe that's what they want.
Now, also, he doesn't really want it to go through, because he's not putting it to a normal floor vote. He's forcing it through unanimous consent, right. Which try getting 100 people. Right. That would be every senator would have to agree to move forward.
You have to get 100% of the U.S. Senate on a piece of legislation, say we'll pay everybody for 2 weeks, and by the way, we'll come back again in 2 weeks and have to pay them again, or else you'll be the bad. And then what is the impetus for ending the shutdown then if you are a Democrat, if you can now pay the entire bureaucracy, which you love, tell the OMB they can't furlough any more people, which is, again, not the role of Congress. The executive branch, again, executes the laws that they pass. And then at the same time, they will try to use it against Republicans to say in ads, see, we had a bill to pay you to make sure your loved one who worked for the federal government was paid. They voted no. But what they're not telling you the truth is, you'd be having this fight every 2 weeks, which means you would never get to an end of a shutdown. And any federal employee right now who has been there at least since Trump 45, so President Trump's first term, has been through a shutdown longer than this. Now it's getting closer, but it was 35 days. And I think we're at day 23 right now. So I think they've been through it. They know they got their back pay. I think it's when you start getting close to the day 30, if it looks like no movement, you got to push on something like what Ron Johnson is proposing, and not be scared into thinking that you've got to vote for this Democrat proposal because of what ads they must run against you.
Well, and here's the other.
The Democrats know right now it's hurting them. They tried to make it the Trump shutdown. It's been the Schumer shutdown since day one. No one believes it's Trump.
And what does Gary Peters' proposal do? It says, okay, you get your back pay, but that stress doesn't go away. You as an air traffic controller, you still now have to worry about the next paycheck. And you know what they're going to do? The Senate, after they vote on these today, or I'm sorry, not even vote, have unanimous consent, go home for the weekend on Thursday. They're done.
Yep.
Close up shop. They're still getting paid. And when people like Bernie Sanders are asked, he said, well,
they got
I mean, it's a good idea, but I mean, some of these people are younger, they have families, they can't afford to do that. You can't ask the Congress to do what we're asking the entire federal government to do. How dare you suggest that? And he's supposed to be the socialist. It's so quickly.
He's the socialist that ended up in multi-million-dollar book deals.
It's how they forget their ideology when you're asked them to do the same thing that they want the rest of the country to do.
Listen, this ends easily by just passing the CR. The CR has nothing new, no new plans in it. That's why you don't hear anything from them about, oh, this is going to do this and that, because even when they try that, it's so quickly debunked because this legislation, the legislation that this is tied to, already passed. And in a continuing resolution, you can't add a bunch of stuff. So the Democrats just don't want to even give Republicans a win on a continuing resolution. That's not final. That's not like passing a final budget. This is how dedicated they are to the radical left of their party, that they think even the bureaucrats who usually vote Democrat, I think it's about 90%, they're willing to make sure, to put them in pain, in harm's way because of politics, because they don't want to be outdone by the more liberal members of their party like AOC and others who they think they are all in a fight with, especially Schumer. It has nothing to do really with policy. It has to do with one political party trying to inflict pain on another political party because they've got issues within their political party where harder left is what's happening with the Democrats right now. So they need to look, the current leadership needs to look very tough, even when they're in the minority, even when the legislation adds nothing new by Republicans that already had passed the House, the Senate, and would just keep the budget going so everybody gets paid. They had to take a stand and say, no, we want $1 trillion added to this. And they're the minority party. Let's figure They don't get to add $1 trillion to anything.
This is a continuing resolution. This isn't new appropriations. This is saying we're keeping everything at the current levels. That doesn't mean this is a 100% Republican-backed bill that is all their spending priorities. It means that it's everything in the federal government. So every Democrat supported program, et cetera, is in that as it has been from the past year. This is the end of the fiscal year. They need a continuing resolution to keep it going, basically status quo. And it's the Democrats that are trying to exploit it at this most tough time because it is the end of the federal government's fiscal year to try and add things to it.